Okay, welcome to week 5 of English Science. This week we're going to be talking about climate change. First, we're going to talk a little bit about global warming. So, the major factor of global warming is CO2 emission into the atmosphere. So, burning fossil fuels will increase the amount of carbon dioxide, which is CO2, in the atmosphere. Here are two definitions. So, fossil fuels is the remains of a dead animal or plant crushed under earth for millions of years, forming coal or oil, such as if a dinosaur died, it would get buried underground and then it would get buried there for a long time and then it would turn into a fossil fuel, such as coal or oil. And then we would dig up that coal or oil and burn it to get energy that could be done to do work in factories, such as the one in the picture. Greenhouse gases are gases in Earth's atmosphere that trap heat in Earth's atmosphere, just like a big puffy jacket would trap your body heat in winter. So it would slowly heat up Earth. And one greenhouse gas is carbon dioxide or CO2. So as we burn the fossil fuels, CO2 is created, and that traps Earth's heat inside the atmosphere and will slowly heat up Earth's temperature. All right, next we're going to talk a little bit about human impact on global warming. And there's a short video for you guys to watch.
For 2.5 million years, the Earth's climate has fluctuated, cycling from ice ages to warmer periods. But in the last century, the planet's temperature has risen unusually fast, about 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists believe it's human activity that's driving the temperatures up, a process known as global warming. Ever since the Industrial Revolution began, factories, power plants, and eventually cars have burned fossil fuels such as oil and coal, releasing huge amounts of carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere. These greenhouse gases trap heat near the Earth through a naturally occurring process called the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect begins with the sun and the energy it radiates to the Earth. The Earth and the atmosphere absorb some of this energy, while the rest is radiated back into space. Naturally occurring gases in the atmosphere trap some of this energy and reflect it back, warming the Earth. Scientists now believe that the greenhouse effect is being intensified by the extra greenhouse gases that humans have released. Evidence for global warming includes a recent string of very warm years. Scientists report that 1998 was the warmest year in measured history, with 2005 coming in second. Meanwhile, readings taken from ice cores show that the greenhouse gases carbon dioxide and methane have hit their highest levels in the past 420,000 years. Arctic sea ice is also shrinking. According to NASA studies, the extent of Arctic sea ice has declined about 10% in the last 30 years. As long as industrialized nations consume energy and developing countries increase their fossil fuel consumption, the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere will continue to rise. Researchers predict that temperatures will increase about 2 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of the century. What's less certain is what rising temperatures mean for the planet. Some climate models predict subtle changes. Others forecast rising sea levels, which could flood coastal areas around the world. Weather patterns could change, making hurricanes more frequent. Severe droughts could become more common in warm areas, and species unable to adapt to the changing conditions would face extinction. Although much remains to be learned about global warming, many organizations advocate cutting greenhouse gas emissions to reduce the impact of global warming. Consumers can help by saving energy around the house, switching to compact fluorescent light bulbs, and driving fewer miles in the car each week. These simple changes may help keep the Earth cooler in the future.
Okay, now that we know a little bit about what global warming is and how humans cause global warming, let's take a look at what happens to our planet when global warming happens. So first effect is sea level. So sea level continues to rise at a rate about 1/8 of an inch per year. So basically in about 8 years, sea level will rise 1 inch. And two major causes of global sea level rise. So the first one is thermal expansion. So thermal expansion, basically when something gets hot, it gets bigger in size. So this is caused by warming of the ocean because water will expand as it warms up. And the second one will be increased melting of land-based ice, such as glacier and ice sheets, because glaciers and ice sheets, they sit mostly on top of water. So when the top of a glacier melts, it adds more water to the sea and rises the sea level. So on the top, there's a little graph, and you can see the sea level versus the year and how the sea level is pretty much rising the whole time. And on the bottom is a picture of a sea level rising and flooding along the side.
So what happens if the sea level keeps rising this fast? 1 inch may not seem like much, but every inch of sea level rise covers about 50 to 100 inches of beach. If the ice keeps melting, global sea level could rise to more than 20 feet, and that would put a lot of coastlines underwater. Some cities that could disappear by 2050 due to the rising sea level are Miami, Florida, Atlantic City, New York, Seattle, LA, San Diego, and Honolulu, just to name a few. On the top right, there's a picture of Florida, and it really shows us that these red shaded areas are probably the first areas to, go under the coast, go under the sea because of the rising sea levels. And there are some terms on the bottom right if you're unfamiliar with the previous slide. Ocean acidification. Ocean's acidification refers to a reduction in the pH of the ocean over an extended period of time caused primarily by uptake of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. This reduces the amount of carbonate, a key building block in seawater. This makes it more difficult for marine organisms such as coral and some plankton to form their shells and skeletons, and existing shells may begin to dissolve. On the left, you can see a picture of the different kinds of organisms and how they're affected by the CO2 that goes from the atmosphere and into the ocean, and in turn, well, it creates a lot of difficulties overall. So later, if you want to look back, I have a shorter definition of ocean acidification that you can read over below. Moving on, have you ever heard someone call water H2O? That nickname means that water is a combination of two chemicals called hydrogen and oxygen. All water contains hydrogen and oxygen. However, most water has a lot of other stuff in it too. For example, ocean water has salt in it, while water from a river or lake does not. The amount of salt is one feature or property of water. Water also has other properties that need to stay in balance for living things to thrive. One of these properties is called acidity. An acid is a substance that can cause certain changes when it is combined with water or metal. Acidity is the amount of acid in water. The acidity of a substance is measured using the pH scale. A substance with a pH of 7 is considered neutral, and an acid with a pH less than 7. And an acid has a pH less than 7. Anything with a pH higher than 7 is called a base. Ocean water has a pH of approximately 8. That means ocean water is fairly neutral and slightly basic. However, in the past 100 to 200 years, scientists have observed that ocean water has become 30% more acidic. Why is this happening? Well, many human activities, such as exhaust from cars and factories, release a gas called carbon dioxide into the air. The extra carbon dioxide can cause problems in the atmosphere, and it can also have an impact on the acidity of the ocean.
As we have talked about some other effects, now we're gonna go to glacier retreat. So what exactly is glacier retreat? So glacier retreat leaves boulders and masses of scraped together rocky debris and soils, and the term for that is called a glacier moraines. And it looks exactly like the picture on the right. And large temporary lakes of glacier meltwater may repute, causing catastrophic floods and even shifting global climate by dumping fresh water into the ocean, and so altering their circulation.
Okay, and for global temperature, so on the side, there's like a picture of the temperature trends. So the global temperature, this is representing an average temperature over the entire surface of the planet. So you're basically taking all the temperatures around the planet and then like adding it and dividing it by total number of places to get an average. So this global annual temperature, it has been increasing at an average rate of 0.08 degrees Celsius or 0.14 degrees Fahrenheit per decade, which is every 10 years since 1880, and over twice that rate, so 0.18 degrees Celsius or 0.32 degrees Fahrenheit since 1981.
Global temperatures. So where does all this rise in temperature stem from? Well, when human activities, or basically human activities, create greenhouse gases, which warms up Earth. And this matters because oceans, land, air, plants, animals, and energy from the sun all have an effect on each other. The combined effects of all these things give us our global climate. And there's a video down there from Google that has a good montage of how Earth has changed over the past 37 years.
There's a place in our universe, a marble spinning in a vacuum. It contains life. It contains us. It may look solid and enduring, but now we can see it differently. Across time, living and breathing. Across time, we can see that we, all of us, are changing this place faster than ever before. We can see the impact of the way we live. Of the choices we make. And see their consequences. There's a place in our universe. How we decide to treat it today will determine our future. What will you think? What will you do when you see our world changing before your own eyes?
Okay, now we have talked a lot about the the impact of the global warming on the planet. And the one last thing we're going to talk about is the increase of nature disaster around the global planet. So the nature disaster is all type of severe weather like wildfire, hurricanes, and volcano eruption. They are all very severe that could pose the threat to our human health and safety, property, and also pose a lot of problem to our infrastructure, like the house we have and or type of building, and also the homeland security. So we could see that there's a large so the global warming will pose a lot of problem to not only ourselves but also to the planet and also to what type of animal.
So now we're going to be talking about the impact of global warming on organisms. So one very big impact on organism due to global warming is the loss of biodiversity, also the loss of the balance in the basically the environment. So what exactly is biodiversity? So biodiversity is the variety of all living things in our planet. And in the recent years, our biodiversity has been declining at an alarming rate. So it has been declining really fast. Like animals has been fewer and fewer, and many of them were due to human activities such as land use change, pollution, and climate change. And there are 5 major causes of the biodiversity loss. So one of them is habitat loss. So this can be done to land use by humans, or it can just be causing by natural disasters, which is also caused by global warming and other stuff. Or there can be invasive species, where it's basically a species that comes from a different country, and that species poses threat to a certain species, so cutting that species to die, and that also causes an imbalance in the environment. And also over exploration. So this means that humans have been extremely hunting and fishing, sort of that type of animal, so it's causing it to close to extinct. And also there are just pollutions and climate change with global warming. So also another change due to another effect due to climate change is pattern change in migrations. So as the climate change is also increasing the likelihood and impact of the slow ones, disasters and environmental degradation, such as droughts, desertification, sea level rise, rain pattern shifts, and those were the stuff that we talked about earlier. So with these very big effects, they affect how animals live in a certain area and causing them needing more mass migrations over the years. And on the image in the bottom, those are some migration patterns. Yeah. And today we're gonna talk about one example of the 5 major causes of biodiversity loss I talked in the previous slide. And the one we're going to talk about today is about invasive species. So the species today that's being threatened is called the Hinggathai purdy mussels. So the Hinggathai purdy mussel is threatened by the zebra mussels. As you can see, those little ones that stick on the top, and the one in the bottom, the big one, is the purdy mussel. So those deep zebra mussels, they attach on any hard surface, including shells and on ships, as you can have seen, other places like rocks on the beach, but they mainly attack those purdy mussels. And with those zebra mussels attached on the hingoside muscles, since they need to like dig into the sand and they just like living there. And when they're like stick on it, the pretty muscle, they can like really dig the sand. So that means they can like have a habitat, they can like sleep. And also with them sticking on the shell, they can't like eat or drink. I mean, they can drink, but they can't eat. And it's very hard for them to move. So by that, like the pretty muscle just eventually dies. And by now, our humans, us, haven't really done much about this. Yeah. So that's one example of the five major causes of biodiversity loss.
Okay, so now let's go into the impact on our human. So there are three aspects I'm going to talk about. There are the safety aspect, health aspect, and also economy aspects. So firstly, there's about our safety. So we had talked a little about nature disaster before, and one of the threat the global warming pose on the nature disaster is it will increase the frequency, which is the time it occur, and also the intensity, which is how severe it is. So those are all increased, and in the future you will see there's more flooding or more wildfire, and there's more nature disaster that could eventually destroy our property and also the human life. So like I said before, it's really threatening the life and the property. And the right here is a picture of the kind of nature disaster we have experienced, and there's much more than those. Okay, and the second aspect is economy aspect. So economy aspect, the one I'm gonna talk about is tourism, like people visit somewhere because it have the nature beauty. They want to visit there to see the beautiful landscape, beautiful river, beautiful rainfall. But because of the global warming, the snow start to melting, the coral reef start to dying, and we just have lost so much beauty of the nature economy. So I mean nature ecosystem. So it have also posed great threat to the avenue for the tourism. Okay, so the next one is about the human health. How the global warming had led to the health problem is that it increased the range of the disease vector. Disease vector is the organism that carry the disease from people to people or from organism to organism, such as mosquito. And because like before the global warming, there's cold winter that have limit their activity, and they're like before the global warming, they have a small range, so they are core by the temperature limited disease vector. But after the global warming, it had increased the geography range of those disease vector. So there's more, it also extends the range of infectious disease, which could be spread very easily. So that's one aspect of the health problem. And another one is heat wave. So we talked about a little bit before the increase of global temperature. So those heat waves could lead to the drought, and people couldn't grow food in their soil, in their land. So it could lead to the food insecurity and also malnutrition, which it could eventually lead to many deaths. And it could also, like in the top, I mean, in the middle part of the earth, which is really hot, it could also lead to many deaths of the old and the youth. Okay, so we have finished our impact on the organism. Our last topic is about sustainable energy and sustainable energy. Okay, so sustainable energy are
mostly the renewable energy, which is the sources that can renew themselves within our own lifetime. So, and also they seldom emit any carbon or any harmful greenhouse gases into our atmosphere, so it won't lead to the global warming. So the example are like the wind energy, solar energy, and water, biomass, geothermal, this kind of energy. So one good side of it is it could reduce the emission, which eventually reduce the greenhouse gases. When we shift from the fossil fuel, which emit the CO2, to the renewable energy, which did not emit, we could largely help our today's state of the global change. So it is very important for us to successfully combat the global warming. We need to make the conversion from the fossil fuel to renewable energy. So you can see that many homes have the solar panel on their roof, and you could also see there's many wind turbine on the field. So yeah, we are making progress, and hopefully human can do more action to combat the global warming together. Okay, and here's some vocabulary. Renewable energy. Renew is meant to be used again, valid again after a certain period of time. And combat is take action to prevent something happen or to reduce something happened. And conversion is the process from changing one form to another one. Here's our resources. And thank you everyone for listening today. That's the end of our lesson. Bye.